We're pleased to announce today that this morning our office filed 6 major lawsuits across the state against polluters. Polluters who damage New Jersey's precious natural resources and then fail to properly clean up their mess. This is the largest single-day environmental enforcement action in New Jersey in at least a decade. And as you'll see from these lawsuits, they involve different regions and different counties in New Jersey. They involve different polluters, and they involve different pollutants. They involve damage to different natural resources. But what they all have in common is that environmental pollution affects all of New Jersey, north and south, rural and urban, rich and poor. And to demonstrate this point, we're having 2 announcements today. This one here in Newark and one in Atlantic City this afternoon. And while the facts of each of these cases may be different, all 6 suits have something in common. They show that today is a new day for environmental enforcement in New Jersey. In 3 of the 6 cases, the state spent taxpayer money dealing with pollution. And today we are demanding our money back from the parties who were responsible. We call those cost recovery actions. And my office has been pursuing these types of actions for years. But in the other 3 cases, we are seeking payment for damages to the state's natural resources. These are what we call natural resource damage cases, or NRDs for short. In these cases, we are suing to force the polluters to compensate the public for all the injuries they've caused to the natural resources of our state. These types of cases are an incredibly powerful tool to hold polluters accountable and to address environmental damage in our state. And here's what's even more significant about these 3 NRD actions. These are the first 3 NRD actions filed in this state since 2008. Not a single NRD case was initiated since 2008. Let me repeat that. Not a single NRD case brought in New Jersey, a new one, since 2008. Throughout the 8 years of the last administration, these cases and this tool was all but ignored. But Governor Murphy and Acting Governor Oliver have said repeatedly how important it is to clean up our environment and to make polluters pay. And that's why they've called for breathing life back into NRDs. And today, folks, we are back in business, working closely with Commissioner Catherine McCabe and the Department of Environmental Protection. Here's what we promise to the residents of this state. We are going to hold polluters in New Jersey accountable, no matter how big you are, no matter how powerful you are, no matter how long you've been getting away with it. When you pollute our natural resources in New Jersey, we will make you clean it up. We will make you pay for that cleanup. We will make you pay for the harm you have done to our natural resources. And we will use your money. We will use your money to restore those damaged resources. And that's why today is a new day for environmental enforcement here in New Jersey. As I mentioned a moment ago, these cases range from small to big, and there's a whole host of them. And certain of them you will hear have a strong environmental justice component. This morning, we're standing near the former location of Ronson Metals Corporation. During the middle of the 20th century, Ronson Metals produced cigarette lighters here in Newark's ironbound section. But in manufacturing these lighters, the company released something else too, a hazardous substance called trichloroethylene. And studies have shown that individuals exposed to TCE face higher risks of neurological and respiratory problems. And Ronson allowed TCE to seep into the soil and the groundwater here in Newark. And about 3 decades ago, Ronson Metals ceased operations. But rather than clean up their mess, rather than clean up the groundwater contamination here in Newark, Ronson sold their site to a developer, which then built homes on that site. Those homes, which stand behind me on Manufacturer's Place, were then sold without warning about the contamination underneath. And as much as any other New Jerseyan, Newark residents, including those homeowners behind me, deserve to live in an environment safe from TCEs and other pollutants. That's what environmental justice demands, and that's why we're suing the corporate successors to Ronson and the subsequent developers of that property. We're suing to recover the costs of the cleanup that we've already undertaken here, and we're suing to impose penalties on developers for unlawfully building these homes behind me. Again, folks, today is just the beginning. In addition to these 6 suits, I'll promise you this: in the months to come, we will aggressively bring additional NRD cases throughout the state, taking to task polluters who've harmed our environment in New Jersey. And as part of our broader environmental efforts, I look forward to working with all of the groups who have made protecting our environment their life's mission. I see the Baykeepers here. I want to thank them. And before I wrap up, I want to thank the acting governor. I want to thank her for being here. I want to thank her for being a lifelong champion of the environment in this state and for the environment right here in Newark. None of these cases that we're bringing today and will bring in the future are done by one person alone. It requires a remarkable team, and it was Jeremy Feigenbaum, who's here this morning, counsel to the Attorney General, who coordinated this effort across the state, across state agencies. He worked with our environmental practice group. David Appy, who leads that group, is here. His team includes Gary Wolf, John Dickinson, Greg Schlosser, Rick Engel, Daniel Harrison, Mark Heinzelman, Tom Lehan, and Paul Stofa. They're part of our Division of Law, which, under the leadership of our director, Michelle Miller, has done some extraordinary work over the last 6 months with me on many affirmative enforcement actions in so many areas, from the environment to civil rights to consumer protection. And of course, none of this would be possible without the men and women of the Department of Environmental Protection, many of whom are here this morning, and without their commissioner, Catherine McCabe, who I'll now turn it to give you some more details about this enforcement action in Newark and others that we brought today, and then we'll turn it to the acting governor to close out, and then we'll take questions. Thank you.
So thank you all for joining us here today, and I especially want to thank Attorney General Grewal and his team for making protection of our environment here in New Jersey a priority. And I want to thank Governor Murphy and Acting Governor Shiela Oliver today, who joins us for making a priority of protecting our environment and protecting our communities. New Jersey has always been known nationally for its leadership in environmental protection, and our Attorney General's environmental legal team has a well-earned reputation as one of the best in the country. As a longtime career attorney at the U.S. Department of Justice and then with EPA, I worked closely with the New Jersey Attorney General's office on a number of landmark cases, and I was always impressed with the dedication and the ability of the New Jersey legal team. So I was very surprised to learn upon arriving at DEP in January that New Jersey had filed no new natural resource damage cases in the entire 8 years of the Christie administration. Today, we are changing that. Natural resource damage cases are important. They are a primary mechanism for restoring our natural environment when it has become polluted or damaged by industrial or other human activities. We have an abundance of natural resources here in New Jersey. We have beautiful rivers, lakes, streams, harbors, abundant forests, agricultural land, incredible wetlands that are so key to protecting our coastlines and our communities in times of climate change. And here in Newark, even in our cities where we are not accustomed to seeing much of what we traditionally think of as nature, in fact, our community here in Newark was founded and is still based on some incredible natural resources. You have only to look at the Passaic River at Newark Bay, and under us, where you cannot see it, but it is here, plentiful groundwater. The health and the future strength of our communities and our economy are dependent on maintaining the healthy environment that we have been blessed with and on restoring that environment when we damage it. When groundwater has become polluted, we need to clean it up. When communities become polluted by industrial activities, we need to clean up the contamination to protect the health of our people and to restore the land to productive use. And that is what has happened here at the Ronson Metals Corp site. As the Attorney General explained, the manufacturing operations that took place here for decades caused extensive contamination of the soil and the groundwater beneath us. Because New Jersey has a law originally called the Environmental Cleanup Responsibility Act, a great name, but now known as the Industrial Site Recovery Act, the DEP was able to press the site owner to clean up the soil contamination. But the property owner did not complete the groundwater cleanup before they sold the property to a new owner. To protect the Newark residents from exposure to any remaining contamination, DEP had required a deed restriction that limited the future use of the property to industrial and parking lots. But the new owner, REI, violated that restriction and constructed residences, as you see here behind us, as well as some commercial properties, without notifying DEP as the Newark Planning Board had directed them to do. And as the Attorney General pointed out, they didn't notify the property owners either, so residents bought unaware of the contamination that still lurked beneath the ground. When you have contaminated groundwater with the kinds of substances here, like TCE, it can vaporize and actually make its way into the basements of the homes that are sitting over that groundwater. And that is what happened here. So DEP had to go out and install, and they are still there and working, soil vapor intrusion systems to prevent the residents of these homes from being exposed. But it scares them, as it should. They are fully protected now with these systems, but that costs money, and it will cost money for years to come. So more work remains to be done here, and today's legal action will make sure that the parties responsible for causing this contamination will be held accountable for all the costs the state has already incurred to address this situation and the future costs. This action is long overdue, and I am grateful and honored to be standing here with our Attorney General, Gurbir, as we turn this new leaf on environmental enforcement here in New Jersey. The acting governor, the Attorney General, and I are dedicated to the principle that all of our communities deserve to have the environment they live in protected to enable them to live healthy and productive lives. And we will use the full extent of our legal authority to make sure that happens. Message: if you make a mess, clean it up, or we will be sure that you do and pay for it. And turning to what we do with the recoveries that we will get in these cases, here in Newark, we are using natural resource damage recoveries even now to create and expand the Newark Riverfront Park, which you can see already down along our beautiful Passaic River. About $23 million of natural resource damage funds have been dedicated to acquire and develop the land of the Riverfront Park to include paths, trails, restored riparian habitats, living shorelines, landscape buffers, gardens, playgrounds, water recreation, and more for our community. And down the river on the other side of the state, down the Delaware River in Camden, we dedicated over $47 million in natural resource damage funds to the design and construction of a 62-acre waterfront park. This was formerly the Harrison Avenue landfill, but it will now be known as the Kramer Hill Park, which will have restored riparian and wetland habitats, landscape buffers, gardens, hiking and biking trails, picnic areas and playgrounds, and all of that in one of the very poorest neighborhoods in New Jersey. These are just a few examples of what the DEP and the Attorney General's office will be able to accomplish together by filing these natural resource damage cases. We will work together as a dedicated team committed to safeguarding and improving the quality of our air, waters, and land for all of New Jersey's residents, no matter where they live. So once again, Attorney General Grewal and team, I thank you for bringing these cases. I am honored to join you here and to have you as my partner. And Acting Governor Oliver, thank you so much for your support and for joining us here today. Before I close, I'd like John Sacco to raise his hand back there. John Sacco of DEP and Mike Gordon of DEP under the umbrella over here. All the years that we have not been bringing cases, at least, thank goodness, these two have been working long and hard to make sure that when the opportunity came, we were ready, as we are now, to move forward. So thank you to John, thank you to Mike and all the people at DEP and the AG's office who've done so much and will do so much to make New Jersey's environment a good place to live for all our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McCabe and Attorney General Grewal. You know, I am an Essex County native, and the Ironbound in the East Ward of Newark is no stranger to me. Today is a day for celebration for the residents and the business owners and those that travel through this part of Newark. I'm very happy to see so many longtime community activists from the Ironbound out here today, who for decades have implored not just their local government, but their state and federal government to address environmental issues here in the Ironbound. You can take a look around you and you can see how densely populated these neighborhoods are. You can see that there was, in the industrial history of Newark, no regulation. This is known as an area that hosted all of the tanneries and chemical processing plants and all of the other manufacturing businesses that made Newark the great city that it was, dating back to the 1800s. But we knew very little about these companies dumping things into the river, dumping things into the ground. If you look at health statistics for the city of Newark, and if you look at statistics for this area, you will see the number of children who suffer from respiratory ailments, who suffer from asthma, who have to use respirators to breathe. So I just want to thank the Commissioner and thank the Attorney General for their diligence within the first 6 months of the Murphy administration of protecting the interests of the residents of this area and making certain that we fulfill our commitment so that our citizens have clean air, clean water, and that they can breathe. Thank you.